Hi everyone, my name is Daniela King, and today I will be presenting on the current event of gaming of young children and really looking at those under the age of 10 and examining the positive and negative impacts and assessing how marketing can be used to mitigate some of those issues. Just for a brief table of contents, I'm going to do the introduction, tell you a little bit about the issue, what the negative and positive impacts are, what the problem and the solution is, and application of the 4 C's. So, looking as an introduction, we know that gaming is becoming increasingly popular in those under the age of 10, focusing in on the school child age. And there's also this growing concern of what the negative impacts are and how much children are becoming addicted to gaming. According to the Federal Trade Commission's report on children's media use in America, it was reported that a substantial proportion of the time that young children are spending with screen media is through digital media, which is really including computers, handheld and console video game players, and other interactive mobile devices such as cell phones, iPods, iPads, all of those things, making gaming very easy for them to access and having those screens right at their fingertips. Now, just to put in perspective how much of an addiction and epidemic this is really becoming, I wanted to share some stats. So, first of all, greater than 90% of children 2 years and up are playing video games, and more than 3/4 of American homes have a gaming console easily accessible to children. Also, the average screen time of children is increasing. So, one thing that I think is really interesting is that the amount of children playing video games is up 9% compared to that of 2009. And this study that examined this found that the growth in percentage points is largely due to kids between the ages of 2 and 5 who have increased their frequency of gaming by 17 percentage points since 2009. And this just kind of ties back into the screen time increasing. The average screen time of school children was over 2 hours per day, with almost 50% being greater than 2 hours daily. I think more commonly we think of the negative impacts of young children engaging in gaming, so I wanted to first touch on those. I want to note that this is not a black and white issue, it's more of that gray area in between which studies are finding, so it's important to evaluate both sides. Now, for the primary negative impacts, I really wanted to focus on the main cognitive, personality, and behavioral impacts. Now, these include first, social isolation. Children engaged in gaming are likely to be off to themselves, playing games alone, not having that social interaction that they would traditionally have without gaming. Also, the decline in physical well-being. We are seeing an increase in obesity due to the nature of how frequent gaming is becoming in children. Also, the lowered academic performance. Children are spending more time on their gaming consoles than on their homework, which is affecting their school performance, and also just the impacts on the brain are resulting in decreased academic performance. And also, there's decreased social interactions. They are getting interaction through a screen, but they're not getting that traditional developmental interaction with their peers. Now, in this group, I think it's also really important to hone in on how the brain is being affected by this increase in gaming. As we know, school children's brains are rapidly developing, so any kind of hindrance is something to note. So it was seen in studies that white and gray matter of the brain is actually seeing changes in those who are gaming versus children who are not. Along with that, they are seeing structural and functional changes in the neural reward system of children involved in excessive gaming and also higher cortisol levels. All of these things can result in different behaviors being exhibited by the child. So some of these behaviors can include restlessness, irritability, poor sleeping habits, and so many others. So it's definitely important to consider the effects on the brain. As I mentioned, this is not a black and white issue. There are some positive impacts that are equally as important as the negative impacts, so definitely want to take some time to go over those today. So we really have to look at what are the positive effects. In studies that examined children who were engaged in positive, moderate gaming interactions, it was found that they actually had better memory and retention, more effective decision-making skills, enhanced problem solving, and increased creativity. And Healthy Gamers expands on this idea, explaining that video games can promote a safe and immersive environment for children to learn and explore, making them particularly beneficial for those with learning difficulties. And I think we really see this in games like Minecraft, where children are encouraged to build and work together. Those have the potential for educational and positive effects. It really just depends on the nature of the game and the frequency that it's being played. So now we're getting into what is the problem and what solutions can be offered. The main problem at hand here is how to minimize the negative effects and maximize the positive effects of gaming in these younger school children aged kids, and just kind of managing that tension between the two. I think a solution for this is setting boundaries and limitations on screen time, whether that looks like a certain window that children are allowed to engage in games or a certain time per day. Also, engaging in more positive games. There are so many positive games out there that promote better cognitive functions, so really honing in on those would help solve this problem. And also just encouraging other activities that are more social and more interactive, more physical well-being activities. And I think that this can also be done through applying the 4 C's of marketing, which we will get into just here in a second. And a way that this solution can be put in place is actually through the applications of the 4 C's of marketing. So getting into our 4 C's of marketing, first I really want to focus on convergence. There has been such an integration of games on so many different platforms. We see this, that these games continue the experience of a console onto a mobile device, or they relate a game to a child's favorite movie or TV show, really enhancing that convergence. As far as the content, one thing I really want to highlight is the violent nature of the content being played matters. Psych Central reinforces idea through studying children and finding that those who were playing Fortnite, which is a popular violent game, were led to have aggressive feelings, low self-esteem, and higher levels of addiction. So when we're looking at gaming in young children, the content matters. Now, that leads us into Conduit. Children are typically engaging in video gaming through digital and handheld devices. As I mentioned, the FTC's report reported that a substantial proportion of the time that young children are spending on screens and gaming is done through digital media, which is including computers, handheld and console video game devices, and other interactive mobile devices that allow them to easily access gaming right at their fingertips. And next we have consumption. This is the way that children are engaging in gaming and the frequency of their screen time. As I mentioned, the average screen time of school children is going up. It's over 2 hours per day, with over 46.4% being greater than 2 hours daily. So we're seeing increased screen time, and we're seeing more and more children engage in video gaming and increasing that consumption. So that kind of leads me into how do we utilize marketing and the 4 C's to promote the positive effects of gaming and minimize the negative effects. So I believe this can be done through promoting less violent games more often. I think marketing tends to promote the more violent games because those are more popular, but if we saw better marketing techniques being used to promote these less violent games like Minecraft and other ones that encourage creativity and better decision making, this would be a great way to bring marketing into this issue. Next, I think that we should ensure games are labeled age appropriate. I think sometimes we do not label them effectively, or marketing fails to show what audience is targeted for, which is just contributing to the issue of young gamers being influenced by the negative impacts of gaming. And lastly, I think promoting boundaries and screen time. I think we as a society have promoted gaming as something that has just become very normal, and many people engage in it for very long periods of time. But we need to utilize our marketing efforts to promote other more traditional activities that children can engage in and just promote more of a lifestyle that is off the screen. And lastly, I just want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch my presentation, and I will leave you with this question if you want to drop it into the discussion. What do you think? Do you think gaming presents more positive or negative impacts on children? I would love to hear your thoughts on this, and hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. And then just to include my sources, here are the ones that were used. These include all of the studies that I mentioned in this presentation and all of the statistics and where all the information was gotten from.